Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. And I have a very special guest today. Brooke Ray is my Canadian expert apraxia friend, fellow boot camper. And we're here today to talk about teletherapy, finding a work-life balance in all of this, but also our favorite topic, apraxia, since it's Apraxia Awareness Month, and the importance of seeing someone who is savvy in apraxia. So, Brooke, if you could start by introducing yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm up outside Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and Laura and I met, like she said, at boot camp. And I have a private practice in the Guelph area, and all that I do is see kids with motor speech or suspected motor speech, suspected apraxia, suspected childhood dysarthria. So I run a sole practitioner practice right now, and I'm jumped into telepractice like everybody else very quickly in March. And it's been a really cool game changer, I think. So,
Yeah. And then did you want to speak to the work you do for apraxia kids?
yeah, absolutely. So after boot camp, I got really involved with the Apraxia Walk, and I started a walk up here, and this will be our 7th year, I think, this year. God willing that things go as planned in September. So yeah, the Apraxia Walk here, and then I got involved with the boot camp class, and I now am part of a group of people looking to start an Apraxia Kids sort of Canada organization, and so I'm involved with some people in that and Apraxia Kids to sort of look north of the border, but also I sit on the Professional Advisory Council as well as a Canadian member.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So let's get started with our first topic, which was teletherapy, since that's kind of what we're all doing right now.
Yeah.
You offer teletherapy before the virus hit?
I did a little bit because of where I am, and I'm only one of 2 recognized Apraxia Kids speech paths up here in the province of Ontario. So I did offer a little bit of service to some families who were remote and just wasn't feasible to get to me, multiple hours away from me. So I did a little bit. I have to say I've seriously upped my game since then. They are very excited at how tech savvy I've become
Yeah.
with all of this extra learning. But yeah, I did a little bit. I wouldn't have said, that I was telepractice, but we were kind of making it work. But I didn't feel in March sort of overwhelmed the way I think a lot of speech paths did, because I already had a platform. I'd already done that research. So that helped a little bit.
Yeah, that definitely was me. I didn't offer telepractice at all. So it was
Yeah.
get a platform, learn how to use the platform, aside from just doing therapy on a platform. So it's definitely been an adventure.
Yeah, and I didn't know, I mean, even things like using the whiteboard in Zoom, I'm a Zoom user. I had never done that before. And sharing my iPad, I'd never done that before.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of a boom card before. I very much was a use what's here and just make it happen in the camera. I
Yes.
do a lot of, I have my little dyno here. I do a lot of popping at the screen, which ends up making a mess, obviously, on this end, but kids
Oh,
love
that's
that.
such a good idea. I love that.
Yeah, I also just throw random things at the screen, because if I throw something at you like this, I don't even have to really hit. It kind of hits you. So I do a lot of that in therapy as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a
Uh,
good
and
idea.
and stickers on my face. I actually posted on my social media yesterday. I think I am not the only person who, even live in person, put stickers on my face to bring my attention here. But how has no one come up with like pore cleansing strips yet for speech paths? I feel like this is a whole area somebody needs to get into.
That is definitely a lucrative idea.
Yeah, in our spare time, right?
Sorry, you didn't tell everyone what your social media pages are. So
Oh,
can people follow?
yeah. I'm on Instagram and Facebook, both Apraxia Speech Therapy. So my clinic here is called Childhood Apraxia and Speech Therapy Center. And so Apraxia Speech Therapy is my handle for both of those. Thanks.
Awesome. Yes. Okay, perfect. For teletherapy, for me, I agree. I had never heard of a boom card either.
Yeah.
And, I think that even still, I've been probably doing this for, how long have I been doing this? A little over a month now. And my whole practice too was converted to teletherapy. And I, as well, only see children with motor speech disorders or suspected motor speech disorders. And so I think that it was at the very beginning, I was just using my physical materials because that's what I knew and feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
But kind of as we've gone along, like I found out like things that work well, things that don't work as well. The other challenge I have, do you have this challenge, is people using different devices. It depends on if they can manipulate the screen or not. So some people say,
Yeah.
yes, I can. Some people say, no, I cannot.
Yeah, it definitely seems to matter. So as many people as I can, I've sort of said, I know there's quite a few tips out there for families, things to make your session go well. But one I find is if you can access a computer,
Mhm.
that's certainly preferred over an iPad, because I do find it gives them more versatility. They can take that remote control. They can participate in annotation on the whiteboard, that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely one of those things that you don't have that control over necessarily, but also just you don't have control over the seating on their end. You don't have control over them staying focused and how much energy that really, I'm a really energetic person in therapy, but I
Mhm.
definitely find it's a whole different energy on this level.
Yeah, it is so hard. That's the one challenge I don't think I quite have down is managing behavior, because managing behavior is hard for even experienced therapists because every
Yeah.
child is different, and different strategies work differently for different kids, and you find your groove with your whole caseload and different things
Yeah.
that work. And now it's kind of up to the parents to manage the behavior. I mean, there's only so much I can do. I can give, like you said, suggestions on seating. I can give suggestions on token boards. I can give suggestions on first
Yeah.
10, but we're doing all of that in therapy that people might not even be aware of.
Yeah, it definitely felt like I was a new grad all over again, and just how exhausted I was. I'm used to seeing quite a few clients in a day, and I'm used to seeing them back to back. And for telepractice, I found I've had to space them out a little bit more and give myself a little bit more buffer between them, just to give myself rest, to give myself an
Mhm.
energy rest, to give my voice a rest. I do
Yes.
find I'm shouting a little bit more than
Yes.
I am loud in my sessions for sure, but I definitely
Yes.
find I'm projecting more. It's
Same. Both my I have a practice with a employee, and my colleague had lost her voice the first week. I
oh
definitely
gosh.
at like the end of my long days, my voice is hoarse, and people ask
Yeah.
me if I'm sick. I'm like, no, I
Well,
just
one
for
of
some
the
reason am shouting at this computer. I don't know.
Well, and one of the things I figured out, this is the
I
headset I
need
use
to get
during
one of those.
yeah, but it's sound canceling, which is great because I
Oh,
can't hear all the hubbub, around me, but
great.
I realized that it was canceling my own voice. So I now actually wear them just seated off my ear, and it's definitely, I'm not shouting as much because now I actually
Oh,
have some sound feedback going. But
yeah.
I think that was part of it, is I was shouting because I literally couldn't hear my own voice. So
Oh, that could be. Well, that's not true for me because I'm not wearing those, but
yeah.
just shouting, I guess, for some reason. Um, so can you just briefly touch on some of your favorite strategies that you found that have worked right now, or favorite, materials that seem to be working better than others via telehealth?
Yeah, I think some of my go-tos have been boom cards not designed for what I'm using them for. So thinking outside of that box, any kind of boom card that the topic or the motivator is motivating. So I have a little guy who's really into puppies. So I
Mhm.
literally just went through and looked for anything that has puppies, and then I'm just blacking out the part that's actually designed for. But
Yeah.
I've got a puppy motivator. I've got a Band-Aid motivator. I've got a fire motivator. So thinking about those things, and all free because I'm super cheap, but looking for things that aren't necessarily designed for the way that they're used for, that's been a big one for me. I am still a huge Tokaboka fan, so I use all of my Tokaboka apps, again, just as reinforcers, motivators. There's so much language and so many speech targets you can pull out of a Tokaboka app.
Mhm.
Pet Doctor is my very favorite one. I should have stock in Tokaboka. And any of those apps where you're creating things. So like, making a pizza, making cake, making an ice cream, making a smoothie, those things that have lots and lots of steps. I find that I can get lots of trials that way.
Yes.
Token boards and some of the online token boards. But I think my very use it every single session, every single day is the toytheater.com.
Yeah.
There's so many games in there. There's so
Yeah.
many, even in the teacher tools. I found this composer app in the music section that is super awesome. And you just put music notes up. And again, anything that there's that cause and effect piece that gives me essentially another trial, I found really, really beneficial. And then my old standards, stickers, throwing stuff at the screen.
Yeah.
What are your favorite things?
Well, I've been wearing things. I don't have stickers on me right now, like with me, but I definitely have things that go on my head. So I have like butterfly headbands, Minnie Mouse headbands. I had my bunny ear headbands because it was Easter. So I put stuff like that on my head. Some kids like it though, and some kids don't. They're like, take it off. But yes. And then I think one thing that just happened this week, that a book for me in therapy is always effective because I can pick the target. I can adapt, like you said. I rarely might read the book the way it's intended. I mean, I might be reading it, but my targets then are specifically set to whatever the kid is working on.
Yeah.
You can always engage a kid in a book. So it was a little tricky, like managing the book this way, but I recently found, there's a ton of book read alouds for free on YouTube.
So many.
And it's easy to pause it. So someone else reads it.
Yeah.
My voice actually got a rest, which was nice, while the person is reading it. And then I can pause it and we can talk about whatever and get some targets in that way. So actually, I've been loving that.
Yeah. And somebody mentioned to me a site, I think it's called Books, and it's free right now while all this is going on. And I think it's designed for teachers, but I mean, free teacher stuff works really, really, really well for speech paths as well. But I've tended to hold up my books. Some of the bigger books don't work as well, but some of those little books, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was doing until this week. I did both, but I liked that.
That was smart.
My colleague found this website where we had a kid who was not engaging at all. He has Down syndrome. He's got some behaviors, and he just looking at the computer set him into a tantrum. And he loves dinosaurs, and so it was just like you said. You have to know what the child likes, because then you can find something that engages them. And so she found virtual tours of like Jurassic Park, like Universal Studios. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Oh my God. He sat for 40 minutes for her, just staring at this video, and she would pause it and come up with words that were in his target word list.
Yeah.
And so that was brilliant. I did the same thing this week, and he sat the whole time and totally engaged. So those virtual tours that you can find on YouTube have been awesome. Like you can find
That's amazing.
one for my kids who love trains. So cool, right?
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's a very good idea. I'm going to have to steal that. Yeah.
And then of course, boom cards. I finally learned what a boom card was, and I've been using them too. So, yeah. And like you said, rarely for how they're intended. We found like a balloon one, and instead of the target words under the balloon, we said pop every time and looked at the picture. Or we found a bubble one, and like pop the bubble, and bubble was a target, or pop. So anyway, I think that kind of like leads us into our next topic, which is the importance of seeing someone who's apraxia savvy.
So important.
It's so important anyways, because the treatment plan is different. But just like you said, even in person, we're rarely using toys maybe as they were meant to be used, or books the way they were designed to be read. We're always creating, we're always adapting, because every child is different, and those targets have to be different. So what do you think about that?
I was going to say, I think so many speech paths, you have to think outside the box, right? You have so many materials, and you're always looking other ways to look them. But I think that when I work in apraxia, I think outside of the box even further than I've ever had to think before. That's one of the things I love about working with this population. I mean, it's just, and it's, parents ask me a lot. I see a lot of families who come to me as a second opinion or third opinion, or, multiple opinion. And it's, the question always comes up during that consultation, can we see you, and the feasibility of that or not? And it's not necessarily that you need to see me, but you do need to see somebody who knows that apraxia treatment is different, who understands the importance of doing it properly, because of all of the, I'm not going to say the bad things that can come up, but there can be a negative, and you've spoken to this before in some of the work that you've done, Laura, that if you do something just the wrong way, or you set a motor plan into motion that's then going to be ingrained, it can set you back so far. And the importance of doing things properly the first time in, so that you get those motor plans. And I think the number one thing I see the most is how many kids come to me with this speech that's really segmented, and there's that, that's a hallmark feature of apraxia, is that lack of transition, or the lack of blending between sounds, and how much again, not damage that's doing, but it's certainly not helping. And the longer that we do things segmented, the longer that's going to be stuck like that. And the importance of blending phonemes the second any child has two sounds together. And I think that I mean, principles of motor learning gets a lot of, fanfare. And I think that that's accurate.
Right.
But if I could just change one thing that I think got fanfare about Apraxia treatment, it would be that blending and how important it is. As soon as you have two sounds, even if they're babbled sounds in a really young person, being able to blend those sounds together this way and then blend them this way and blend them with prosody and blend them with stress, and how important that is. And I don't think enough that's funny, stress is put on the stress of speech, and that prosody or the suprasegmental feature.
I agree with you, because I find so many children who come to me for that same reason. It's for a second opinion or a consultation, just to see, what I might do differently or some suggestions. And definitely I frequently will get children who might have let's say all their bilabials and alveolars, but they're not sequencing them correctly. They don't have functional, even basic CV or CVC words with those alveolars and bilabials. And the speech therapist had moved on and is targeting velars. And so trying to be as professional as you can, but being we have a lot of work to do before we really ever touch on velars, unless velars come in on their own,
Yeah, or that they've been working on bilabials and alveolars, because that's, as speech paths generally, that's what we're trained to do, is to start there, but nobody's really dug into vowels. And if anybody's ever heard me speak before, I get a really on a soapbox about vowels and how important vowels are, and you can't leave vowels. And I think for speech paths, that's hard, because we're not trained in school to work on vowels, because they don't come up that often in development as a problem. So the vowels, mid-grade vowels, those tense vowels, and the importance of getting those vowels, because there is research to say that vowels will not correct themselves. So that's really important.
Yes, totally. So I agree with you. So we're talking about co-articulatory transitions. For those of you who read the fancy literature and want to know what that means, that's what Brooke was saying, is that blending of the sounds is really important. Another thing I see done wrong frequently, or not done wrong, but that parents don't understand, and I'm gonna have another webinar with a fellow boot camper on this whole topic, but is just the cueing and the level of cueing. And a lot of times over this type of therapy, parents can get really good at cueing, which is great because the child needs cueing, but then don't understand why generalization or transfer has not occurred. And it's because the child is completely cue dependent. And so not having them in person is a challenge, because you can model that, and I don't know. So that'll be another webinar topic, but I find that one. And then the other one is just how you're cueing the vowels to not have a schwa, like we talked about.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, or the ending of words, to not get that over, and again, helpers, right? But helpers trying to emphasize the speech sounds can become overemphasized, and you get those schwas added. Can I share with you an analogy I use for cueing?
Yeah.
Okay, I made this up. I'm a very analogy person. That's not a word. Okay, so, and I share this when I'm teaching, but if you were to follow me, let's say we were in the same city, and I know that we're not, and I was to say to you, follow me home tonight, and we're going to follow me home, we're going to have a party. But as you're following me, if you had to come back the next day, would you be able to do that? And the chances are low, because just following somebody, you don't have to sort of engage with your environment. The second difference, or the next step of that question, would be if you were to come over tonight, but I was to give you sort of the basic directions: come out of the driveway, take a left, take your second right, then you're going to take your third left, and my house is the blue one with the red garage. Could you get there tonight? Probably. Could you get there tomorrow? Maybe you could, because now you've got some directions and you've had to engage with your environment and put some cognitive thought into that. But the third level of that step, or that analogy, is if I were to tell you to take the left and you're going to see a great big building, and I want you to take a right at the blue building, and you're going to see that's a major intersection, so be careful at that one. And then I want you to take the second left, you're going to take a turn at the McDonald's there, it's going to be there on your right, and there's a Burger King on your left, so take a left at the McDonald's, et cetera, and I were to give you all these cues along the way. Could you get there tonight? You could, and you'd be really confident that you were going the right way. could you get there tomorrow? Could you get there next week? Could you 6 months from now driving by in the neighborhood be like, oh, that's Brooke's house down there by that McDonald's, right?
Mhm.
And I talk about that as cueing with parents, and I'll use it in my sessions to say, listen, you're being supportive, but you're being a GPS, and I need
Yeah, I
you to
love
give
that.
cue directions. I want you to get them there as confidently as possible, but they can't get there again tomorrow if they're just following you there. So
Yeah. And it is really, it's so hard to explain to parents because it's a balance between what we're seeing the child do and how they're responding. It's not just a one, like, now you don't use it, or now you do use it, or it's not like that. It is like a dance.
it is a dance, and they're seeing what they're seeing in therapy when we're doing that really hard stuff, and that acquisition stuff is going to be different than what we want them to do at home too. And I think as
Yes.
therapists, that's something we can do better at, is to taking that time in those sessions to show the level of cueing that should be happening outside the therapy room, because it is going to be different than some of what's happening in the therapy room.
Yes. Love it. Okay, so let me see on our agendas here. We've covered materials, the importance of seeing. Is there anything else you want to say about just, kind of having a apraxia? How is it in Canada? Actually, I don't really know. I've written a lot recently about how in the United States, graduate level programs do not adequately prepare SLPs for apraxia. Most of them. There are some in the United States who actually are teaching about apraxia now, but I like to
Cool.
say that my grad program had 14 loose leaf papers. It's not in any of the textbooks I have. I'm talking childhood apraxia speech here. And so even though I came out of school feeling like, yep, I'm certified in every speech and language disorder, I really was, you're not, and SLPs talk about that a lot too. Like, we need to stop putting the pressure on ourselves to be completely competent in every area, because we're talking birth to geriatrics with every speech and language problem. So anyway, how is it childhood apraxia speech addressed in your programs in Canada?
I think it's improving. I mean, I can speak specific to Ontario, and I do a lot of lectures across the programs now, and other people are doing more lectures. I do think that across Canada, it's happening more. More people have heard it. More people are aware of it. I think I think we're up to 12 boot campers up here,
Oh, wow.
fairly well spread. There's certainly more work to do. We do have a Canadian boot camp happening. Well, it was supposed to happen this summer. So next summer now. So that's going to help a lot, I think, in terms of being able to hit and just provide the resources to our graduate schools, so
Yeah.
that minimally everybody gets, a lecture on it or some kind of resources on it. I think it's doing better, but same as you, when I was a graduate, 15, 16 years ago, or my math might be wrong on that. I got a 3-hour lecture from somebody who clearly was an adult clinician who was doing her best. But it was at least the feather was in my cap. This is a word, this is existing. And so that when I had my first kid, I kind of went, this sounds like that thing that I had a lecture on. So
Yeah.
I don't expect, again, like you say, given the gamut of what has to be taught in grad school, and I don't know about you, it's 2 years here post bachelor degree here, and our schooling I know is different. But you've got to cover feeding, swallowing, speech, language, cognition, all of it, birth to geriatric. That's intense.
That is.
So I don't expect apraxia to get a course. I mean, I say this, but a lecture would be good.
Lecture would be good.
A
Yeah.
lecture would be good, and minimally, know what it is, know where to find their resources.
Yes.
Remember that I came into your class, and so, so you can look me up or look somebody up so that you know what you're doing. Look up Apraxia Kids, whatever it is that you can then as a clinician find. But I think it's improving. That's what I would say.
Okay. Yes. Well, good.
Yeah. But you've got to find somebody who knows it's more than a word. I mean, I think that's a good first step. I think in Ontario that's happening well. Clinicians are saying, hey, this is like apraxia. Let's do a little bit more digging. Let's, and accessing. And I do think there's more access to PD. Social media. I mean, there's so many people on social media now doing really great, completely free, try therapy this way. And, on YouTube, there's a lot more information, like from ED Strand and the DGTC stuff, all free. And those are certainly where I push people, and some of the webinars from Apraxia Kids being free. So I think we're doing better.
Yeah. Yeah, I do too. So last thing to talk about is just work-life balance and all of this. How, I'm interested to know how it is being a mom and a apraxia therapist.
Yeah, and that's where I'm different from you in that I don't actually have a child with apraxia. People ask me all the time how I got into apraxia. It was clients,
Mhm.
but I do. I have 3 small children at home. I run a practice. I run a couple of volunteer organizations as well, trying to get Apraxia Kids Canada sort of up and running and helping with Apraxia kids as well. The balance is hard, and I think because it's such a I say involved, like I get emotionally involved with my clients. And
Yeah.
I think part of the reason that is because how often I see them,
Yeah.
and for how long we see them,
Yeah.
right? You know, you don't see
Yeah.
kids with artic or phonology for nearly as long or nearly as often in most cases. And so you become kind of this part of their extended family. And their worries and their troubles weigh on me. And I think a lot of good clinicians, you know, we take our work home, even though we don't intend to, we're thinking about them, you know, in the background of their mind.
Totally.
One of the resources that I've just actually come across is a book called Leaving It at the Office. And
Mm.
it's actually designed for psychotherapists, but quite honestly, and not to, you know, say I'm a psychotherapist in any realm of possibility, but there's definitely some overlap with our jobs. And yeah, it's a book that I've just started to dig into, and it's really kind of speaking to me in terms of those skills that I need to be able to still be as empathetic and helpful at the office, but then be at home and be present with my kids, and to be able to leave everything that I do at the office. Yeah, my big one for me is a physical separation. So I have a physical office, which I know a lot of clinicians don't have that possibility.
Mhm.
It's just small, but it's also really close to my house. I'm really fortunate for that. So especially during this pandemic, I've still been able to physically distance from home life,
Mhm.
and so fortunate to be able to do that. Excuse me. I know a lot of people are working out of their home or out of their guest bedroom or
Yeah.
wherever they can, right?
Yeah.
But for me, I find I need that physical distance, and that helps me personally. But it's taken me 15 years to figure out what that is. So
Yeah, I will say too, having a physical like specific place for it is so much better. And I think that keeping that in mind, that's the same for our kids who need therapy. So, you know, I'm finding if a kid is, I'm trying to do therapy while they're laying in their bed, it's just not as effective because a bed is where you sleep. It's not supposed to where you're doing the hard work of speech. So
yeah,
it is like recommending, you know, maybe let's try and find a different dedicated space that's not even where you eat. You know, people have been going to the kitchen table, but the kitchen table is where you eat and you relax and you have a meal. It's not where you do the hard work of speech. So if
yeah,
it's possible, and it's not always possible, but if it's possible to have some other dedicated space that like, this is my little workspace, even if it is in your house, even if it is in your guest bedroom,
yeah,
that says this is where I do this job, and then I can go to another room. So
yeah,
otherwise it blurs a little bit. And I have to say right now I'm not necessarily having that separation because my husband and I both have to work from home. And
yeah,
so we switch upstairs and downstairs. So we have a desk, but both of us share the desk. And it is a challenge because I feel like it's like my kids are getting snacks while I'm doing therapy. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. It is.
It's hard.
I mean, my clients do like seeing Ashlyn, you know, and
Yeah.
saying hi, but it's just not ideal. Yeah.
No, it's not ideal. It'll be really interesting after, you know, some things go back to the way they were, or at least go back different, and, you know, depending what that looks like. It'll
Mhm.
be interesting to see what, you know, if we're able to keep these balances or improve our balances. I think, you know, even just as a society, we've been talking about how great the slowdown has been for us and family time
Yeah,
and all those things. And will that be enough to propel us forward to keep a better balance as we go? I'll be really interested to see.
I will too. Well, and I can say too, aside from that, just, you know, just in terms of teletherapy, I know you were offering it before, but I wasn't. Like, it's definitely not something I'm going to get rid of now because, like you said, it kind of opened up my ability to see other people in different corners of my state, and
Yeah.
that were driving me to me before just for a consultation, but that we didn't really do anything after that. You know, they kind of
Yeah.
took my recommendations and went on their way. And
That's exactly.
yeah, so this has been nice because I can see them this way and it's been good. So, oh, you know, another thing I've been doing, sorry, I'm going to go on a tangent real quick, but
Yeah, no.
Dave Hammer is a international, now retired expert, and he was Brooke and I's mentor in boot camp when we went. And he always had this suggestion of a grandma's brag book, where it was kind of like a little photo album of their core words, or of words that you're working on, that the kids could kind of go through. Do you still do that?
I totally do that. I love that.
I totally do that too. And I haven't been able to do it because I'm not there. I don't have that book. Their books are either with them or at my office. And so what I've done now is I've been doing it as a PowerPoint. And I just have the parents send me their pictures like we would.
Nice.
They're typically, for those of you that don't know, they're typically actual photos of things relevant to the child's life. So maybe it's mommy, daddy, maybe it's papa and nana, maybe it's their puppy, maybe it's a brother's name. And and so he incorporated all of those, and they would be in this little photo album book that then you kind of go through. And anyway, I've been having the parents send me those pictures, and now I put them in a PowerPoint, and now their PowerPoint is like their book, if you will. So
that's so awesome. I've been doing the same thing on an app that's like a journal. And so I have all my kids, so same idea. I think this app is called Paper. But then I can do it, but same idea exactly. But I have everybody's sort of book, but you've had, again, like just having to think outside the box about the way that we do the things we still need to be doing, and can access it. And then I can send them the whole book so they have a copy of it as well. So I love that. I love that.
PowerPoint. So same idea, just different format, but So it's challenged us all. I have an intern. You mentioned before that you kind of felt like a new grad, and I would have to agree. I feel like I need backup plans for my backup plans. And it's not like, luckily I am not a new grad, and so I am able to adapt and be flexible and think of something else. But had I been a new therapist just starting out, and you create your lesson plans and then they're not working, it was very difficult to, okay, let's try something else. Okay, we're going to do this. That was really hard for me when I first started. So
a lot of on the fly thinking. And I think too, I mean, even just in a session, because of how important the amount of practices in a session, I'm a pretty fast thinker. I think in Apraxia therapy, you have to be. And especially because you see these kids multiple times a week. They go through your therapy material so fast. The stuff that's novel for weeks and weeks and weeks doesn't work always with this population, because they burn through it so quickly, which is great because I get to go shopping a lot. But you have to be constantly thinking about, again, that idea of how else could I use this same material? How else can I repurpose this material? So that I'm not always stealing my kids' toys from home, because they're onto me for sure.
I'm so doing that too. Especially with my son. Ashlyn, not so much, but my son is like, where are my magnet tiles, or where are my... Actually, no, I did do it to Ashlyn. She has a Pete the Cat book that she's never had me read to her. And so I took it and read it, and she was like, that's my book. And I was like, you never read this book. And she's like, I need it back, Mom.
I need it now.
Suddenly she needed it. Oh my goodness.
That's too funny.
Well, is there anything else you want to speak to on any of our topics?
No, this has been awesome. I mean, it's always so great to talk to you, Laura. I think it's such a specific kind of population. And when we find people who just really get it, we talk about our Apraxia family, and, our Apraxia nerd group, and just how it's this big posse, and, to not see each other at conference this summer is going to be so sad.
That makes me so sad.
I know, so sad. But I think people, as I meet new families and I train with new speech paths, and just how excited I am that they're passionate about Apraxia, and to welcome families into our circle. I mean, there's definitely, it's a family, and I love it. And this is our month, and this is our time. And I think even with all this pandemic going on, it's so important to still take time to celebrate, and to raise that awareness. And you're doing so much this month, which I'm so excited about.
I'm excited too. Thanks for joining me for it, because you're part of it. So I really appreciate it. All right, everyone. Well, thank you for joining us. Like we said, if you want to find Brooke, you can find her on Instagram and Facebook under, what is your handle?
Apraxia Speech Therapy.
Apraxia Speech Therapy. Pretty pretty easy to find. So she posts a lot of great stuff, and she's doing a lot of great stuff in Canada. So feel free to reach out to her. She will respond. She's amazing.
Absolutely.
And yeah, happy Apraxia Awareness Month. Thank you for joining me. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Laura. Thanks, everyone.